Welcome to Let's Dive Straight In. I've got a very good old friend of mine who we haven't seen for many years, and Kobus, Scheepers, welcome.
Thanks, Stace.
You gave a lot of us a hell of a kick when we watched you swim, and we'll get into that a bit later. Those who know you will know why the word kick is synonymous with Kobus, Scheepers. But Kobus, tell me, where did it all start? Swimming. I mean, you achieved the great heights in swimming, but where did it all start for the guys who don't know Kobus, Scheepers?
Well, Tace, I come from the Eastern Cape. I grew up in Port Elizabeth mostly, and as it happened, just down the road from where I grew up, there was Peter Elliott, who was a swimmer back in the 30s, and his son was Brian Elliott, and he was a famous swimming coach. So in the same street as me, there was Peter Elliott Swim School. So when I was about 7 or 8, my mother took me down there to work with some of my excess energy, and I found I liked it. Talking about kicking, I could kick faster than any of the other kids. So
yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Old man Elliott used to have things called toffee galas, and if you won the race, you got a toffee. So on Saturdays we had toffee galas, and that's where it started. I just did it because I enjoyed it, and largely because I was successful, I guess. Even as an 8-year-old, I was like kicking along. You had these 1 meter big wooden kickboards, big planks like this, and you sort of held onto this thing, and you sort of did your thing behind it. Yeah, so that's where it started for me.
Okay, so toffee galas, you got paid in toffee. So Kobus, admitted now you're a professional swimmer. You were
yes, I was a professional right from the start. Yes, I got toffees. Not much else.
Okay, Kobus, you said your first big event was the top 10 age group gala, 50 meters butterfly, and I think 10 and under. Was that your first?
Well, that's right. So back in the, I think 69 or 68, they started age group in South Africa. And then they used to have this thing called the top 10 age group in Durban every year. And then the top 10 swimmers per event were invited to come along. So I was invited to come swim the 50 fly in 10 and under. I was a 9-year-old in 1970. So I got to fly to Durban. This is in the 70s. You must remember, this is like just after the Voortrekkers, So I was the first one in my family to go on an aeroplane. And it was fun.
Kobus, I think you touched on something now, getting on a plane, going to Durban, traveling. I mean, that's what swimming gave to all of us. I mean, my first flight was also taken from Windhoek to Bloemfontein to the SA Junior Schools Championships, So
yes.
Swimming opened many doors, but you still had to work hard and sort of get through the doors.
Sure.
Tell us a bit about the early days, training sessions, anything that stood out for you. I mean, you said excess energy. I think you've still got a lot of energy if I look at it.
So when I started with old man Elliott, he built a 25-meter pool in his backyard. He was very enthusiastic. So, and he was a bit ahead of his time. He got a big black pipe like this, which he put on the roof of his house. That was his heating system. So we used to swim in this pool. But in Port Elizabeth, there were no heated pools. So we only swam for 6 months of the year, from very cold to warm to very cold, from September to April. So training sessions in the beginning were I remember going that trip to Durban. It was in April, and everybody else had stopped swimming in March, and we were still swimming in April, and it was very cold.
Then it brings back memories. I'm sure the guys from our age group and older, we all remember those early September sessions in the freezing cold water. I mean, it's amazing. These days, most pools are heated or they're indoors.
So then I moved to Grey High School. They had a 55-yard pool, which they built at the school. And we used to swim there. And that pool was just as cold in September.
Yeah.
Mr. Connell, he was our coach there. I can tell you one thing about swimming sessions. Mr. Connell, who was an ex-Rhodesian coach, he decided that over the summer holidays for 6 weeks, what we had to do was swim from 7 to 9, 11 to 1, and 5 to 7. Yeah, 3 sessions a day for 6 weeks. I mean, it was insane.
And the good thing is, Kobus, at least you were eating, prepared meals and very scientific, I'm sure. to replace the energy.
There was bacon and eggs. That was about it in the mornings.
Toasted cheese sandwiches.
There was no science involved.
Classic.
Well, it's strange you mentioned the food, because my mother decided that eating steak was the right thing before a race. So I remember I used to get steak on a Friday before Friday night galas. You must remember I had 4 siblings. I had 2 brothers, 2 sisters. They hated all this because I got to fly around, I got to eat steak, and they didn't. So it turns out that now apparently athletes are eating steak again, protein rather than carbohydrates before.
They might get paid in coffee soon.
So we were ahead of our time back in the 60s in Port Elizabeth, yes.
Awesome. Kobus, you won your first SA Schools title in 1977. Again, the 100 meters fly. That was a senior schools.
Tace, the problem with all this is I don't really remember that well. So I remember in primary schools, I'm pretty sure I won the 50 fly one year. And then the next year in primary schools, I didn't win the 50 fly in Port Elizabeth in the trials. There was a friend of mine called Lionel Barnes, who's passed away now, unfortunately, but he won the 50 fly. Okay. So my coach said, well, why did you win the backstroke? So I swam the backstroke, and as it turns out, nobody else did. So I won the 100 backstroke at the trials, and I got to go to Bloemfontein to go swim the 100 backstroke in primary schools. And I remember swimming that race because I got about halfway at the turn, and I was like ahead, and I stopped because I thought, well, there must be something wrong. Where's everybody else? And just to put it in context, by the time I finished, I won the race, but it was 10 seconds slower than Jannie Horn's South African record. So it was just a bad year altogether. So that was primary schools. In high schools, I have a memory of winning the 100 fly, definitely in 1977, in high school championships in Boksburg. I can't remember 76 or 75. It's too long ago. Early on, standard 6, I wasn't even swimming. I kind of lost track of the idea that I should be swimming, and I didn't train very much, and I didn't get picked for EP schools in standard 6, I think, standard 7. But, to me, it was just a hobby. It wasn't the center of my life. I swam because it was fun.
I think that's why most of us swam in those days, and thank goodness for that. Kobus, your first Nationals Curry Cup, as we know it. I mean, I remember we all collected those lapel badges and everything.
Yes.
Do you remember what event you qualified in? And
so my first qualification was a big thing in those days, and you had to do a qualifying time to go to Nationals. Yeah, so I qualified for the 100 and 200 fly in 1975 in Johannesburg. Paul Blackbeard won all the gold medals. He won 9 gold medals in 1 year.
He was just rude. I mean, he was just rude.
He's greedy.
Greedy. Legend. I mean, how many people on this group was inspired by Paul Blackbeard and people? But anyway, okay.
Yeah, so I went to Johannesburg. Paul won the 100, 200 fly. I think I came 4th or 3rd or something like that. That was in 75. So I basically swam 100 and 200 fly every year at Nationals from 75 to 82. Although I was missing in 1979, I went to America.
Okay. On a scholarship, a swimming scholarship?
Yes. Well, not initially. Initially, I bought a one-way ticket to Luxembourg and found myself all the way into America, and eventually I hung around there, and eventually somebody gave me a scholarship to Houston, University of Houston.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember growing up swimming, the American, Mark Spitz with the American costume and Doc Councilman and the Fort Lauderdale school. I mean, we were inspired by what was happening in America, but we were isolated from swimming against these guys. And I think Paul Blackbeard also alluded to that.
Yeah.
So you were swimming competitively in America. Tell us a bit more about that. I mean, that must have been a crazy journey.
I'll tell you one thing that happened to me. I remember swimming in a relay event. And I got on the block, 4x100 freestyle relay, and next to me, I'm 6'3", right? So I stand on the block, and next to me, this big guy gets on the block. Okay, he's like a Mr. Big Oak. That was Jim Montgomery, the guy that broke the world record at the Montreal Olympics. He gets on the block next to me.
Wow.
Now, I'm a little guy from Port Elizabeth. I didn't know about this kind of stuff. Look at this guy, I think. Okay, so yes, occasionally you can, but that was the thing about swimming in America. You never knew who was going to get in the block next to you.
Yeah.
It wasn't like in South Africa where there were only, 10 swimmers in your race ever.
Yeah. And
So,
as a competitive athlete, we get intimidated by names and sometimes by size. You know, even if you don't know who it is, you look at him and you just think this guy must be fast and strong.
well, I knew who he was when I saw him, but I was a bit taken aback that he was standing in the block next to me. I had to swim against him. It's like, no, you won't be joking.
Yeah. Luckily, you had a lot of training swimming against guys like Paul Blackbeard, who was also world class at that stage. Kobus, tell me a bit, who inspired you? Obviously in the beginning we swim for fun, and then all of a sudden we read about these times, or we see newspaper clippings, and anybody in the family or any friends or who inspired you to work harder and to be better?
My family, as I said, my brothers and sisters, they were not happy with me anyway, because I was getting too much attention and too much stake. My parents used to fly up to nationals every year to watch me swim, but nobody was really involved. I mean, I was just doing it at the school. We swam, but in the winter I played rugby, because our pool was in Port Elizabeth, we could only swim for 6 months of the year. So swimming was only ever a part-time activity, simply because you couldn't swim from April to September.
Yeah.
I went to America, as I said, and I got there without any particular plans. And the only person I knew in America was Janie Weir, and she was at the University of Alabama. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go to Alabama and see what it looks like over there. So I went there, and she said to me, "What are you doing here? You can't just come in here." So I said, well, I'll just come to say hello, I don't know anybody else in America. She said, well, John T. Skinner's here. Why don't you go talk to him?
Oh, wow. John T.
Yeah. So I went and found John T. Skinner. John T. says, Greg Scott is here. Greg Scott is a breaststroker, Springbok from Boksburg. He says, why don't you go stay in the house with Greg? So I went to stay in the house with Greg for a couple of weeks. This was in August, and the students were just partying in Alabama and so on. And so eventually John T. said to me, well, if I go up to New Jersey, where he used to live, where the club is, you can go there. I've organized for you to go stay with the family. So I went up to New Jersey. And I stayed with this family called the Naps,
okay.
Mr. Knapp. And John T. was the summertime coach. So he would come in the summer and coach us. Their coach was a guy called Bill Palmer.
So was John T. already retired at that stage?
John T. was already retired. This was 78.
Okay.
So he was an assistant at Alabama. And then in the summer, he'd come up to New Jersey and coach us there. So, I mean, if anybody was an inspiration to me or whatever that I sort of knew, it would have been him.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Kobus, so after America, I mean, I met you in the mid-80s, and you mentioned the name Jane Weir. Both of you ended up at Marty's swimming club, sort of.
That's true.
Was that on the comeback trail? What happened there?
What happened to me was in 1982, I got something called Legionnaire's disease. I don't even know what that is. It's a respiratory disease, and also you get brain cell infection.
That's serious.
And myocarditis, you get heart muscle infection. I think I'm no doctor. I don't actually know, but anyway, that's kind of what I was told back then.
That's a scary disease to have
well, it's supposed to kill you off mostly. But I was an 18-year-old, 20 or 21-year-old kid. I didn't know any better, so I got it from the indoor swimming pool in Hillbrow.
Oh, wow.
Where I was training at the time with Dean Price.
Yes.
And that basically put me in a coma and ended my swimming. Sort of, I didn't swim again officially after that. And then at some stage I was down in Stellenbosch, and Santa was there, and Santa van Jaarsveld, and I sort of started swimming with him. I mean, it's just something we used to do. So from time to time, you get back in the pool and you swim again for a while with no real. I mean, what was I going to do? I wasn't going to do the Olympics. I already broke a South African record. What more was I going to do? So I was just swimming for fun.
Yeah. How old were you then when you came
was
back?
There, and yeah.
It was 84. I was first year at Marty's, but I started swimming since I think 81, 82 when the indoor pool opened up, and Santa then joined us. And I mean, those were incredible years. I mean, I think Lee McGregor also made a comeback joining Marty's.
Good. Yeah.
I think that was still under Libby Burrell. Lee was the guy who actually got me involved into surf lifesaving, a sport that I really loved. So Kobus, when you made your sort of second career, I think you went to Currie Cup, if I remember correctly, after when you joined Marty's again. Or?
No, I never qualified. I never swam nationals or anything. I never competed again. I used to just enjoy the training.
Okay.
Just for the fun of it.
I just remember your kick. I mean, you had an incredible underwater kick, and the first time ever I was reminded of your kick was when I swam with Chad Leclos recently doing photography, and I looked at his underwater work, and I just remember there was one guy that had a similar type of kick.
Similar underwater kick.
I mean, we did a lot of stretching in those days. We didn't do as much winter training or weight training, but we did a lot of stretching and flexibility. And I mean, you had a massive kick and a big advantage. Kobus, later years.
Let me just tell you something else that happened to me. When I went to University of Houston, there was a lady there called Diane Janigman. And she I didn't know this, but she was the world record holder for the 200 fly. And she was on the girls team. We trained together. So we used to kick. And I used to have a hard time beating her and kicking because it's like, hey, this is called keeping up with me, with kicking. Little did I know, it was Diane Janigman.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Kobus, you studied law. You became a state prosecutor, I think.
Yeah, I did. I spent more years at university than I should have because I didn't study very much. But eventually, I got an LLB, and then I went to become a prosecutor. Well, I went to the army first, and then I was a prosecutor, and then I worked as a prosecutor in Port Elizabeth for a couple of years, and then I qualified to become an advocate. I went to the bar exam and I practiced at the bar in Port Elizabeth.
Incredible. There's another good friend of ours, Anton Loopscher, who also went into the...
Sure.
Also a butterfly swimmer. There's something about...
Anton's a butterfly. His brother was Carl, who was a swimmer backstroker. And sure. Anton's did an LLB as well. He's also an advocate.
Yeah, we'll catch up with them on the show. I'm sure we'll catch up with these guys as well. So, Kobus, tell us... maybe life after swimming. You got married, kids. Tell us about that. And I see you sitting in space now. It looks like you're in the space.
Yes, I work for NASA now. I'm an astronaut. Oh no, sorry.
You did go to Houston, so it makes sense.
Houston, you have a very big problem. No, I'm not an astronaut. I live in England now. I live in a place called Lincoln.
Okay.
Which is a Roman retirement village. From 2,000 years ago. What they do have here in Lincoln is a lake. They've got an 800 meter by 200 meter rectangular lake. Well, the lake's bigger than that. That's a circuit that they have. So we do outdoor swimming there. Because outdoor swimming, they call it wild swimming here. These people, they jump in the rivers and in the lakes and the dams, anywhere where they can. Even if it's only like 2 feet deep, they swim. They call it wild swimming. So outdoor swimming here is quite fun.
Nice.
I lived in Suffolk for a while, so I used to go swimming in the sea in Felixstowe, in the English Channel. But the water gets to about 4.5 degrees in the wintertime. In January, February, we were swimming there. And of course, only girls wear wetsuits, so you got to be a tough guy. So you only wear a Speedo and a cap.
Still,
4 degrees is not present.
Clifton swims and Camps Bay swims, you don't wear wetsuits. Oh, come on.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, but Clifton's 12 degrees. I mean, it's like summertime here. 4 degrees is very unpleasant.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I do a bit of outdoor swimming when I get the chance. I swim in the gym. But they kicked us out of the gym for about 4 months. So I haven't swum now for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're still active, swimming, which brings me to the next point, and that's why we're actually connecting again. Is you started this South African swimming history website? Tell me more about that. What inspired that? I mean,
well, Jonty Skinner did.
First of all, thank you very much. I mean, this is why we're talking and why all these old swimmers are sort of coming out of the woodworks and share. I mean, swimming. If it wasn't for the friends, swimming would have been really just way too...
I don't know what it's like for kids these days, but for us, it was a party. I mean, we used to have friends, it was fun. Fun first and swimming second. Well, in my life anyway, that's probably why I didn't get as far as I should have got. But anyway, no, what happened was in 1996, Penny Haynes breaks a world record in Durban.
Yes.
All right. And I have a conversation with Jonty Skinner over the phone at some point, and he says to me, when last did somebody break a world record in South Africa? I was like, I don't know. 1996, so I thought, well, maybe it was Karen Meyer. I don't know. So I tracked her down. She was living in Harrismith, I think, working as a doctor. And I got her phone number and I phoned her up and I said, I just want to ask you, when is the last time you broke a world record? She said, I don't know. How am I supposed to remember that stuff? It's so long ago.
Wow.
So then I realized, well, there is no history. The South African Amateur Swimming Union had been disbanded. So SASU and all that stuff was gone. And we now had Swim South Africa, and they didn't have a history of swimming. There was no record of any activities before 1996, 1995. So I started. I thought, okay, well, I don't know, I'll make a website, because we didn't even know who won which race at nationals every year. There was no record of where was nationals in 1922. Well, it wasn't Salisbury as it happened for the first time with the Rhodesians, but there was no record of that. So I spent many hours in the British Library in London. Luckily, I was living in London, working in London, and I'd go, and they have physical copies of old South African newspapers, and some on microfilm as well. So I spent hundreds of hours, thousands of hours in the library, and then I decided, I'm going to make a website, which was not really my thing. But anyway, so I made this really ugly website, and I've been making this website and creating this, or collecting this information for the last, I don't know, since 1996, really, last 15 years. Okay. So we're about version 5 now of the website. So
yeah, Kobus, thank you very much for that. I mean, I think all swimmers that I joined that Facebook group, which is also quite a large group and quite an active group, and people are sharing photographs. It's really, I go to that group literally every day. I click through.
Really? I'm amazed. I don't know anybody ever goes there most of the time. So I should say, I started the Facebook group specifically for that reason, so that I could get people engaged, so they could upload their pictures.
Thank you very much.
Which luckily we've got about 2,000 members there now, so they've been doing that.
Well, a feather in your cap. I did an interview with Paul Blackbeard a few years ago, and really thought, Paul's story is stunning, but my interview skills are not really good, so I'm not going to post it. And then about a week ago, I posted it onto your Facebook. I uploaded it to Facebook and shared it on your page, and it got us 1,700 views, which
fantastic. There you go.
It's the reason why I'm talking to you now. I think the stories from the 60s, 70s, and 80s are important to capture.
Sure.
People are interested in where are the guys now, what are they doing, how did life after swimming end up? And sure. Thank you very much for putting the time and effort in that. And if I can inspire you to keep on doing it, and we'll ask everybody to partake, because if one guy's driving it and no one else is using it, it's not worth it. But no, Kobus, thank you very much. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. You still look 18 years old. I think you've still got a kick. Yeah, swimming cap. I'm used to seeing guys with swimming caps, so that's natural now.
That's true.
I want to wish you well. I hope we can stay in touch now, and
for sure we will.
And I'm going to try and speak to some swimmers from your era and catch up with a lot of this, because I think there are incredible stories, inspirational stories to be shared and to be captured. And
well, John Harrison is still in East London. Anne Fairley is in Cape Town. Susan Roberts, those girls who won the bronze medal at the 56 Olympics, they're still around, or most of them. Yeah. So there are some people from the 50s that if you're quick, you can catch them. They're still around.
And I think what I also want to do is I want to talk to the coaches. I mean, you're the one saying that we got to try and get to Clara Oric and hear one
Clara,
of them.
Yeah, she's in her 90s.
Just one more time.
Yeah, no, it'd be great if you can get hold of Clara.
Yeah. So thank you very much for what you've done, as a swimmer. I think you think you didn't reach the heights you should have. I think, Kobus, you were inspirational. When you joined Marty's, you inspired people like me who were a year or two younger, and stay the humble champion that you are, because in my books you are champion, Kobus. You've achieved incredible things in swimming and in life, and we are a long way from over. You've actually conquered a very serious disease as well, and that puts life into perspective.
Sure, man.
So keep up the good fight. Have a steak every now and again.
Keep
on swimming.
I'll do that. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kobus.
Okay, Thijs. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Dank.